YouTube, I'm back. Again, talk about the less is more act, but more from a point of view that majorly impacted myself, when it comes to parole. I was sentenced to about 31 months, 3 years, and to do 12 years post-release supervision. So, they told me that I had 3 years to go. I went down, I went upstate. First, I went to Wendy, spent a week there. Then I went to Elmira and spent another 3 weeks there while they evaluated me and did a risk assessment or whatever they do. Not a very useful system. They also tested me for my high school equivalency, where I would be at school wise, and whether I'd be eligible for a vocation and other programs that they would want me to do ASAT, um, ART, phase 1, 2, 3, you name it. So, off to another jail. Now, first off, they sent me about 4.5 hours away from home. Not considering what it would be like, what kind of a burden it would be on family members to make that trip. Therefore, I didn't get any visits at all. During the 31 months I was there, I got out in 31 months rather than 3 years to start a 12-year post-release bid. So, long story short, while I was there, I completed all my programming. I completed 18 months of vocation. I got my high school equivalency within 12 months. I took a parenting marriage course. I took life coaching. I learned to be a peer facilitator, to teach about different viruses and whatnot, safety around HIV and a lot of other useful things great things to teach there. Also, I got an IP to, because I wanted to teach GED, since that was, so easily accessible for me. I figured it'd be great to be able to help somebody along the way too. Anyways, I get out in 31 months. Two family members, my wife, picking me up. She takes me to parole. Parole tells me not only I cannot be around my wife because of order protection that was expired so many years before I even caught this charge to be on this parole. Anyways, they also told me I couldn't be around my kid, and I also couldn't be around most of family members that weren't on parole and didn't have any criminal problems at the time. They also eliminated me from going to Narcotics Anonymous meetings, Alcoholic Anonymous meetings. They told me I couldn't establish myself in a church. I couldn't work in the immediate public, and I absolutely could not do any side work. I could not own the internet. I, had to be in with 8 o'clock. Well, anyways, I got out of there. I figured I broke the rules already. So, went to my mom's house, you know. I gave her a hug and kiss, thanked her for being there for me, even limited to being able to visit me. She wasn't able to visit me. So, I went back to the halfway house. And mind you, I had the ankle monitor on, so they'd been pretty sure where I was. Um, within a deviation of like 3 feet, like they would be off 3 feet. So when I got back, parole officers were there within 15 minutes to re-detain me, put me in handcuffs, tell me I wasn't supposed to be anywhere I was supposed to be at. um, and that they were violating me. I was only out less than 12 hours at this point. It was devastating to my family. So I'm pretty sure that I'm gonna only maybe do 6 months, maybe. So I get there to court and they give me 22 months. And so when I got there, the 24 hours later, a parole officer came, dropped me off my paperwork, told me what I was getting in trouble for. Said, oh, this is not a big deal. I said, well, this may be a problem in my future. I mean, why am I affected by all these stipulations after that most of these don't even apply to me. Um, so she left me the paperwork. Almost a month later, um, I go to court and they rattle on something about my criminal record. And first offer was 24 months. My lawyer tried to talk him down to a reasonable number, and the judge was like, absolutely not. So they gave me 22 months. 22 months. And nobody knew that there was a pandemic coming. You know, so not only do I have to do 22 more months, but I have to do my programming all over again, and they won't allow me to do a vocation, which was good on the first bid, kept me busy, and it was useful because I was learning a trade. Well, I ended up working in the library and stuff like that down the road, but 22 months for a violation that I got was ridiculous. Now, if the less is more was if if the less is more was passed back then, um, I would have only done 1 month. Not 22 months. Now, the first time I went to court, I'm thinking, I look at my lawyer, I'm like, why can't my family be here? He said, oh no, these hearings are closed off to the public. Nobody can be in here except me, you, parole's lawyer, and parole's judge. Um, Absolutely cannot have any family members in here at all while these proceedings are happening. So that answers how transparent that is. And I'm willing to bet that if these weren't closed off meetings or closed off hearings, that they probably wouldn't be handing people numbers like 22 months and 8 months, and because then they would actually have to directly answer to the people. And the people that I'm talking about is the public, my family members. Um, and you know, on top of that, I would have been offered a speedy hearing. Um, like I said, I wouldn't have been harshly punished as I was. Um, you know, this system that's in place right now, it doesn't offer a whole lot of leniency anywhere you go. So they not only spend a lot of money to incarcerate me, but they spent a lot of money trying to get me out and find me housing to pretty much throw that all away when I got out with an unreasonable system that I'm telling you is likely everybody is likely to fail the system at least one time on parole. Most people violate their parole at least 2 to 3 times before they get off, depending on if they got like a 4 or 5 year bid. I've seen people with 6 or 7 violations that look like um, just dirty urine, the failure to help the person with the rehabilitation. Um, so now they're even violating people during a virus pandemic. Now it's got dire consequences across the board. Now they're jamming up the jails during the pandemic when we really want people to be pretty spaced out and conscious about whether or not they're wearing a mask or in close quarters with people. Um, During my 22-month bid, I was coming on about 5 months before my bid was over with, and I kept hearing about this Wuhan virus, and it was getting bigger. It was Wuhan's problem. 3 days later, it was China's problem. Now, 3 days after that was everybody's problem. Um, Now they're shutting down all of the programming. All the programming that we find useful, like our music programs, our library, our education, vocational programs. They shut down any festivals that were going on. They shut everything down. The only thing they didn't shut down was getting people in there. Did not shut down Elmira or Downstate or Ulster. Them re, them hubs were getting people every single day. Lots of people at a time. Remember reception hubs. That didn't stop. It didn't slow down. In fact, when like the Surgeon General and the CDC were saying, "Hey, you should probably stop transporting people around," they were still transporting the virus all over the state of New York, denying it. People were getting in trouble for curfews and coming and dying as a result, as their punishment. Um, you know, Nobody should get the death penalty for a non-criminal parole violation. Absolutely not. There's other ways to deal with that, like the 30 for 30. For every 30 days a person does without getting in trouble, they get 30 days off of the back of their parole sentence. And that's a huge incentive. Most people want to get off of parole fast, quick, fast, and in a hurry. So I can see people behaving a little bit more, being a little bit more mindful of what they're doing out here, and wanting to earn that 30-day credit every single time. So um, the naysayers like PEF, the public union for the parole officers, it's they keep saying it's going to be such a burden on the court systems because it's just going to be added court cases. Well, there wouldn't be hardly any cases at all after this bill is passed. There's other ways of handling a late curfew. And jail isn't a rehab, so if somebody has an addiction problem and they relapse, you send them to a recovery center, like a treatment center. That's where they deal with those problems. Um, Send them to outpatient, inpatient. There's tons of treatment options nowadays. There's so many medications and different ways of doing things. Not send somebody back upstate because they relapse. It's difficult now. In fact, because of the pandemic, they found that overdoses and relapses are way up now due to the different kinds of stresses that this pandemic has caused. So think, people are confined to their houses. They got these masks over their faces. They got the stresses of, am I going to catch this? Am I going to catch this and give it to my loved ones? Where am I going to get money at? So, along with those stresses, relapse is a big possibility. It's so to kick somebody further when they're down it's just not helpful to anybody, especially the system that's paying out over $680 million due to these parole violations. And that's $90 million just for one county. That's my county. I'm in Erie County, New York. And Erie County spends about $90 million every single year for non-criminal violations. These aren't for somebody committing another crime. They were late on their curfew. They were drinking a beer. Neither are illegal. Just small violations and deviations of their rules. Again, there's other ways to handle these problems, and incarceration doesn't have to be one of them. So, I'm a big fan of this less is more. I'm glad that June 10th it passed through the Senate and it passed through the Assembly. And it is awaiting for Governor Cuomo to just okay it and sign it into law. There's no real opposition for this bill. Everybody really thinks that this is a very positive reform. We're talking about district attorneys, sheriffs, different law enforcement agencies. We're not talking about PEF or their union. These are union employees. Sure, they're going to look out for their employees or what they think is good for their employees. But all the major law enforcement agencies, district attorneys, smart people, different law agencies like legal aid and people that have to deal with this when they're overburdened and have to represent one of us on these non-criminal offenses. That's where the real burden is. You got these public defenders and already overbooked for dealing with criminal offenses. And these people are in a non-profit agency. So when they have to deal with these non-criminal technical violations, that's an overburden on their system, not on the parole system. They should have, PEF should have been clear on that. And all the numbers agree with what I'm saying, with 35,000 people being out and being afraid of coming back, and 5,000 that are already in there, afraid that they either might die or they might not make it through the rest of their parole without being back 5 or 6 times. But I just wanted to ping pong off you. I told somebody else I wanted to do an unscripted video. A couple people said that it would look better. What's your review? What do you think should happen? Give me some ideas on how what I should do next on my channel. What's important? Thank you.